She was already yelling before she even got out of her SUV. "Open this gate right now." Her voice echoed across the lake like a siren. I stood by the fence, coffee in hand, pretending not to hear. The sign on the post said, "Private property." No trespassing, but apparently that meant nothing to her. "This isn't your land anymore," she barked, holding a clipboard covered with HOA logos. I almost laughed. "Ma'am, this land's been in my family since 1964, I said calmly. Her lips tightened. The board voted. The Lakeside area now falls under HOA jurisdiction. She flashed a paper in my face like it was a royal decree. I didn't move. "Funny," I said, "because that's not what the county records say." Her eyes flicked to the small camera mounted above my gate. "You recording me?" she hissed. "Always," I replied. That's when she lost it. She slammed the clipboard on her hood and shouted, "Fine, I'll call the cops. You're trespassing on HOA property." My stomach clenched, not out of fear but disbelief. "You're calling the cops? On me, at my own lodge?" She didn't blink. "You'll see," she said, dialing her phone with shaking fingers. Within minutes, 2 cars pulled up. Not police, but security guards wearing black uniforms with badges that looked off. No state seal. No unit numbers. "Sir," one of them said, "you need to vacate the premises." I squinted. "Who sent you?" "The HOA," he answered. My pulse slowed. This wasn't official. This was personal. Karen crossed her arms with a smirk. "Told you I'd handle it." That's when I smiled back, quietly unlocking the small metal box beside me. "Good," I said, "because now it's my turn to handle it." HOA stormed in, demanding my Lakeside lodge. I locked gate. She lost it in front of entire HOA board. The padlock clicked shut, loud enough for everyone to hear. The guards looked at each other, unsure what to do next. "You just locked us out?" Karen shouted, half laughing, half furious. "You can't do that. The HOA owns this lakefront now." I leaned on the fence, calm as ever. "Then show me the deed," I said. Her face froze. For a moment, the only sound was the wind moving through the trees. Then she waved her phone. "You're obstructing HOA business. I'll have you arrested for that," I smiled faintly. "Go ahead." Behind me, my dog barked, a deep warning sound that made one of the guards step back. "Look, ma'am," he muttered, "this doesn't look legal." She glared at him like he'd betrayed her. "Do your job," she snapped. "This man's a squatter." That word hit hard. A squatter on my own land. My jaw tightened. "You might want to check the name on the mailbox," I said, pointing behind me. The guard hesitated, walked around, and came back pale. "It says Dawson, county seal and all." Karen's expression flickered just for a second. "Forgery," she said quickly. "He fakes documents. Enough," I cut in. "You've been warned 3 times. Step off my property." Her hand trembled as she pointed at my camera again. "You can't record HOA officials without consent." I couldn't help but chuckle. "Then you shouldn't have trespassed." That's when she did something unbelievable. She pulled a folded notice from her purse and slapped it onto my gate. "Effective immediately," she declared. "Your access to this road is revoked." She turned to her guards. "Tow his truck." My heart pounded. My truck, and my only ride, my work tool, was parked right outside the gate. "Don't you dare touch it," I warned. But she grinned. "Watch me." I didn't move. I just reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened the app showing every camera feed around the property. "Smile," I said quietly, "because you just made your biggest mistake today." She tried to tow my truck off my own land, but she didn't know I had the whole thing on camera. The tow truck rolled in like it owned the place, mud splattering as it stopped just inches from my fence. Karen stood tall, arms crossed, watching every move like she was leading some kind of army. "Hook it up," she ordered. The driver hesitated. "Ma'am, I'm not sure this is—" "Do it," she screamed, cutting him off. I could feel my pulse in my ears. My dad's old truck, the same one we rebuilt together before he passed, sat there in perfect condition, shining under the sun. And now she wanted to drag it away like trash. The driver stepped out and started lowering the chains. That's when I said it, not loud, just enough for her to hear. "Karen, you might want to stop right there." She gave a smug little laugh. "Oh, really? And why's that?" I tilted my phone so she could see the screen. The live feed from the front camera showed not just her, but the fake cops from earlier standing behind their car, one of them wearing a vest with a blurred-out logo. I zoomed in and tapped the badge. "See that?" I said quietly. "That's not police issue. That's costume gear. You're impersonating law enforcement." Her eyes widened for half a second before she caught herself. "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped. "This is official business." "Funny," I said, because I just sent the footage to the sheriff's department. I hit one button. Uploading. 34%. Her confidence cracked. "You can't." "Oh, I can," I cut her off. "And they're already on their way." The tow truck driver froze mid-motion. "Ma'am, I'm not getting arrested for this," he said, unhooking the chain. Karen spun on him. "You'll regret that." "No, ma'am," he muttered. "I think you will." He drove off, leaving her standing in the dirt, fists clenched, hair whipping in the wind. For a moment, the lake went silent again. Then she leaned close to the fence, voice trembling with rage. "You think you've won? You don't even know who you're dealing with." I stared at her, calm and steady. "Neither do you." She called fake cops to scare me. But I sent the footage to the real sheriff before she could blink. The real sirens came 15 minutes later. Not the cheap flashing lights she'd used earlier, but the deep, rolling sound that makes everyone stop breathing for a second. Karen's face drained of color when the county sheriff's truck pulled up. 2 deputies stepped out, real badges catching the sunlight. "Morning," one of them said, eyes scanning the scene. "Got a report of a disturbance." Karen jumped in before I could speak. "Yes, officer. This man is illegally occupying HOA land and threatening me." I didn't say a word. I just handed my phone to the deputy. He pressed play. The footage showed everything. Her screaming, the fake cops, the bogus towing order. The sheriff's brow furrowed. "Ma'am, these men you called, where'd they come from?" "They're HOA enforcement," she said weakly. He raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, that's not a thing." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Karen's voice broke. "He's lying. He forged those property papers." "That's why The sheriff turned to me. "Name?" "David Dawson," I said. "My family's owned this lodge for 60 years. Here's the county record." I handed him the document. He took one look and nodded slowly. "It checks out." Then he turned back to her. "And your name?" "Karen Blakely," she muttered. "President of the Lakeside HOA. Well, Ms. Blakely," the sheriff said, crossing his arms. "Looks like you just trespassed, vandalized, and brought fake officers onto private land." The air went still. She took a step back. "You can't arrest me for trying to protect community property." The sheriff's tone hardened. "Lady, this isn't community property. You've been warned about this before." Her eyes darted around, desperate. "He's manipulating you." But the sheriff cut her off. "Save it. You'll explain that downtown." He motioned to his deputies. She screamed as they walked toward her. "You're making a mistake." "He's dangerous. He's hiding something." I stayed silent. But deep down, her last words hit different, because she wasn't entirely wrong. She thought I was just some guy with a camera. She didn't know who I used to be. Karen's voice echoed inside my head long after the sheriff's truck disappeared down the dirt road. "He's hiding something." She wasn't wrong, and that was the problem. I stood by the fence watching the sun drop behind the lake, trying to calm the storm that had started brewing years before she ever showed up. I walked back inside the lodge. The walls were lined with old photographs. My dad in uniform, my unit back in Kabul, the folded flag that came home with me. I'd bought this land with my discharge pay and promised myself one thing: no more battles. But peace never lasts long when people like her show up thinking power comes from paper and noise. The phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in me said answer. "Mr. Dawson." The voice was calm, steady. "This is Deputy Reeves. You might want to come to the station. We ran Karen Blakely's record." My stomach tightened. "And?" A short pause. "She's not just HOA president. She's under investigation for property fraud. Several counties." I froze. "So she's been doing this to others?" "Looks like it. Fake notices, fake fines, sometimes even fake police. We've had complaints, but nobody had proof until now." My mind raced. "She's got partners," I said. "Those fake cops, the driver, someone funds them." Reeves sighed. "Exactly. And here's where it gets tricky. One of those names shows up on your old military contractor list." I felt a cold chill crawl up my spine. "You're saying this ties back to that?" "Maybe not directly," he said quietly. "But it's connected. I ended the call and looked out across the water. The reflection of the red sunset danced on the surface, calm and beautiful, but underneath something ugly was moving. Maybe Karen wasn't the real enemy. Maybe she was just a piece of something much bigger. She thought she was fighting a homeowner, not a veteran who'd taken down warlords for less. That night the lake was too quiet. The kind of silence that feels wrong, like the air's holding its breath. I sat by the window, lights off, watching the reflection of my own lodge flicker across the dark water. Then a faint glimmer and headlights. Not one pair, but three, creeping down the dirt road like shadows. I killed the porch light and reached under the counter for the small steel box I hadn't touched in years. Inside my badge, the real one, not just a soldier, but a former county tactical officer. Retired, sure, but not helpless. The first car stopped near the gate. I saw figures step out, two of them from earlier, the fake cops Karen had brought. But this time they weren't pretending. They were armed. One lifted a flashlight toward the camera I'd installed that morning. "He's got surveillance," he muttered. The other laughed. "Doesn't matter. We're just getting the files on the drive. Boss says no witnesses." I felt my pulse slow instead of race. Training kicked in. Step 1, stay unseen. Step 2, gather proof. I grabbed my phone, accessed the hidden drone feed I'd set up to monitor the perimeter after Karen's first stunt. The screen lit up. Faces, license plates, timestamps. Perfect. I recorded for a full minute before the crunch of gravel made my chest tighten. Someone was walking closer. A familiar voice whispered through the still air. Karen's. "Get inside and find it." He's bluffing. The deed's fake. It has to be. She sounded different now. Not entitled, but desperate. Panicked. I opened the back door quietly and stepped onto the deck, watching as one of the men tried forcing my gate open. The camera light blinked red. That blink wasn't just recording. It was live streaming to the sheriff's office. I smirked. "Come on in," I whispered. "Let's make this official." Before I could move, one of them spotted me. "He's there." Flashlights flared. Karen screamed, "Grab him!" I raised my hand slightly, calm as stone. "You're all being filmed," I said. "And the sheriff's watching right now." Then blue lights again. Real ones. Fast. Loud. They broke into my lodge to destroy the proof, Gurun, but I was already live streaming them to the sheriff's office. The sirens cut through the night like thunder. The fake cops froze, flashlights shaking in their hands as the sheriff's cruisers tore down the gravel road, light bars bouncing off the lake. Karen spun around, face pale and wet with panic. No, this wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered, backing away. The men who'd been with her bolted for their cars, but the deputies boxed them in fast. Within seconds, the air filled with shouting orders, the click of cuffs. The sheriff stepped out of his truck, his jaw tight. "Didn't I warn you once already?" he barked. Karen tried to speak, but her voice broke. "You don't understand. He's lying. He's—" "Enough," the sheriff said, pointing at her SUV. "We've got your prints all over the forged documents and your emails linking you to 4 fake HOA operations." He turned to me. "You okay, Dawson?" I nodded slowly, though my hands were trembling. "Yeah," I said. "But I think she was looking for something. Not just land." The sheriff frowned. "What do you mean?" I pointed to Karen's car. She kept saying the deed was fake, like she knew something about it. He signaled a deputy to check the vehicle. Moments later, they came back with a metal briefcase. Inside was a stack of maps, property blueprints, and a single flash drive labeled Lakewright's Dawson. Karen broke. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she cried. "He's sitting on land the county never released. It's worth millions." Her voice cracked into a sob. "We were supposed to take it quietly. No one was supposed to get hurt." The sheriff stared at her. "So that's what this was about? Greed?" She looked at me with wild eyes. "You think you own this place? Your father's friend forged those papers years ago. You're sitting on government land." The deputies tensed. I just stared back. "Then why try to steal it instead of telling the truth?" She looked down, tears cutting through the dirt on her face. "Because I didn't want the truth. I wanted the money." The sheriff shook his head, signaling to take her away. But I stood there, the weight of her words sinking in. What if she was right? What if my dad's legacy wasn't what I thought it was? She tried to steal my land for money, but her confession made me question everything my family built. The morning after felt strange. Too quiet again. But this time, it wasn't peace. It was the kind of stillness that comes after a storm, when you're not sure what's left standing. I sat on the dock watching mist curl over the lake as the sheriff's car disappeared down the road with Karen and her men inside. My reflection looked older than I remembered. Tired, maybe because part of me knew she wasn't entirely lying. By noon, Deputy Reeves showed up again, a folder under his arm. "Got something you'll want to see now," he said, setting it on the porch table. Inside were 2 documents, the original deed my dad signed in 1964, and a newer one from the county archives. The stamps didn't match. My stomach dropped. "You're saying she was right?" I asked quietly. Reeves shook his head. "Not exactly. Your dad didn't forge anything. He saved this place. The government wanted to seize it for a private developer after the war. He found a loophole, filed through a veterans land trust and bought it under that program. It was never supposed to go public." I leaned back, exhaling. "So this was always his?" "Yeah," Reeves said, smiling faintly. "But people like her, they see a quiet man on a lake and think he's an easy target." For the first time in days, I laughed. Small but real. The kind of laugh that means you finally understand the fight you're in. I looked out across the lake, the same lake my dad used to call freedom water. He'd say, "Son, this land isn't about money. It's about peace you earned." I finally understood what that meant. Later that evening, a new sign went up on my gate. Not a threat, not a warning, just one line burned into the wood. Private property. Veteran-owned. Freedom paid. I locked the gate one last time, took a deep breath, and let the silence settle again. No HOA, no lies, no more noise. Just me, the water, and the truth finally out in the open. I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't live on my own land, and now no one ever will again.